And welcome to Unofficially the Podcast, Wisconsin Badgers. Wisconsin loses 24-10 to Iowa after a, frankly, pretty embarrassing offensive showing. I'm here with Matt. Matt, just give sort of your initial thoughts on this incredibly pathetic performance.
Yeah, I sit here a broken man, Evan. Last week, I had excitedly proclaimed what I thought to be a certain future for Wisconsin, which was a path to the Big Ten championship. One in which we only needed Illinois to fumble a little bit, and we needed to control our own destiny. And while Illinois has held up its side of that bargain heretofore, Wisconsin decided that it did not want to control its own destiny in a positive way. So,
yeah,
it's what is the date today?
12th.
It is the 12th. So we're 12 days late for Halloween. Halloween is a season of spooky things and scary things and frightening things, and today was a spooky thing and a scary thing and a frightening thing this game. We lost to Iowa, a team that has been horrible and pathetic and disgusting. And I don't know if that makes us even more horrible and even more pathetic and even more disgusting, but I think it does, and that's just how I feel today. So
yeah, I mean, just a couple of points I want to say. One, obviously, the loss is more disappointing. The fact that Purdue beat Illinois. Illinois is going to lose to Michigan next week, and if that happened, Wisconsin was in the Big Ten championship had they won out, and that was such a real possibility. And so that's obviously completely lost now. This one was so tough just because the offense was as bad as I can remember. And the fact that our defense was... I think we've sort of seen this script before. Wisconsin, terrible special teams, right?
horrible.
Obviously...
Block punt.
The block punt. Yeah, exactly. Block punt. They let up a big punt return. And then turnovers. I mean, the Graham Mertz pick six obviously was terrible. I'm the biggest Graham Mertz defender in the country, but I will admit this was Graham's worst performance.
I'm glad you said it.
Not even close. I mean, Graham looked terrible today. It's just as bad as he's ever looked, and a lot of it falls on him. I mean, he had time to throw. The receivers were not always open, but there were times where receivers had made space, and Graham was just off target.
Yeah.
He floated a lot of balls. He floated a lot of balls, threw into triple coverage. He's made, obviously, the pick six was just bad. There's also, I mean, a lot of just miscommunication with receivers. I don't know what is going on with Graham and the receivers, because it seems like every time... I shouldn't say every time, but there's so many times where Graham just throws it and there's not a receiver.
There's not a receiver anywhere.
Yeah.
So there's clearly miscommunication. So I guess there's a certain bipolar quality to being a Badger fan. Right?
Yeah,
There's a manic and a depressive stage to it. And last night, our beloved Badger basketball team had a great performance against Stanford and won, and we were on cloud nine.
Yeah.
And then we walk in today with what I thought was a game that we would handily win against Iowa, who has been really bad this season. I mean, last week they did well, but I thought we would, easily win this game. And the defense does not deserve
exactly
the quality of the product of the offense.
And before we move on, I just want to say Iowa total yards 146 offensive yards.
And again, the defense does so well.
146. Right.
Herbig had how many sacks?
Right.
I mean, our defense is top notch, like best of the best in my opinion. Even after the attrition we saw from last season with losing a lot of starters, Herbig and others have held up this defense, and I would put it against most defenses in the country right now, but
it does make the defense has improved as the season gone on.
Absolutely.
Illinois, they look terrible,
both in pass rush and in pass defense, Like our secondary has been great. I mean, again, I think we are still tied for most interceptions.
Yeah, lately defense has looked really well.
And our pass rush has been incredible.
Yeah.
Like Herbig is leading the Big Ten in sacks. I mean, we're doing really, really well. It's just the offensive product on the field is embarrassing. It's horrifying. I've stated my thoughts on Graham Mertz in the past. Right. I think so, but you're absolutely right in that he's just clearly not synced up with his receivers. He's throwing where they're into no man's land half the time.
Right.
Otherwise, he's throwing into triple coverage, or he's throwing, like you said, he's floating these weird balls out there. Even that great reception he had, I think it was the second reception of the game. Okay. And he floated it in there, and I just thought to myself, like, a more competent corner would have just absolutely ball hawked that thing out of the sky. Like it was so slow.
So I mean, this just was not the Wisconsin football we've seen previously.
And Braylon Allen couldn't run the thing.
Exactly, Braylon Allen, right?
But I think that's more of a testament to Iowa's defense. That they were pretty good on stopping the rush, but I think our passing just couldn't open up that space for Braylon to run because Graham Mertz just couldn't connect.
I agree, and so Braylon's 17 carries for 40 yards, so obviously not a good performance. Our yards per rush, 1.6 yards per rush, so terrible rushing performance. I can't remember the last time we've had a rushing performance this bad, but Braylon, I just don't know what to think of Braylon. Obviously, after last year, he looked like a complete stud and was breaking off like huge runs. Seemed to be able to had the great vision and was able to bounce it outside. And it just seemed like last year was great. And this year, I don't know what the deal is. Our running game is just so bad, and I don't know if it's blocking. I know Braylon is getting hit in the backfield. So I don't know if it's a matter of
there is a blocking element to it where we're just not, our line is not sturdy enough, I think, to give him the gaps that he needs. He's not getting the running lanes.
There's no big holes. There are no big
he's
holes.
Not getting the running lanes, but still, like today, he wasn't generating like the yards after contact that he typically does.
Right.
He was, and he also wasn't running north south all that much.
Right.
There was a lot of this weird again, and I think that's all selfish running when you try to run east-west and you try to break these tackles and you just ultimately don't. I saw nothing offensively today that gave me any hope. And
I would agree. I mean, it just felt like hopeless. This game really just felt like I was being constricted by by a python or something. It was just they really squeezed the life out of us. Offensively, just could not get anything. It was just the time kept melting away. And the Iowa special teams vastly outperformed Wisconsin special teams. Wisconsin special teams so many problems and points given up on special teams that are just game changing. They completely changed an entire game. The block, we've no business having a punt block. You have no business having a punt block. You need to cover. Our punt coverage on that was terrible. It just absolutely kills you. So yeah, it seems like the same script we've seen before. Special teams just comes up short. Wisconsin's, I sort of empathize with the coaches because I'm trying to think how much of this do I put on Bobby as offensive coordinator, and it's really tough for me to put that much on him because when your team can't execute the plays, it doesn't really matter how much you run, and I didn't think we were necessarily that predictable. It was not the traditional run, obvious pass on third down. We did mix it up, and there were plenty of times to try to throw it on the field. Bobby was definitely was giving this team chances, and it just seemed like, a lot of it just Graham couldn't hit the guy. Graham couldn't hit the guy, or I don't know if he helped, or sometimes it wasn't just in Graham though. There was a pass to Braylon where Braylon just could not. There's one hit Braylon right in the hands. That was dropped. That would have been for a significant gain, or not a significant gain, but at least something to keep the drive going. And I don't even know. I was trying to think if I put myself in Bobby's shoes. What am I trying to call? Because you just could not do anything, and I don't know what the solution for that is. It's just a matter of. I mean, I don't know. I just like if it is a matter of scheme, or if if there is just there's nothing that this group of players. I don't know what scheme for this current group of players. Like what would possibly work.
So I'm a realist, right? And I like to ground my emotions in reality. I don't like to be dramatic. But as a history buff, right? I have a degree in history from the University of Wisconsin. I look back at our history as Americans, and I think of a few specific days that really give me pause. And I think of, when the British burned Washington in the War of 1812. I think of the sinking of the Lusitania. I think of 9/11, and I think of today.
Well, this wasn't as bad. It was not as bad. It was not as bad as Illinois.
No, because
Illinois lost.
Because what did those days symbolize? Those days, they were the death of a dream, and that's what today was.
The death of a dream of a Big Ten. Yeah, certainly Big Ten championship.
And also, I think it officially relegates Wisconsin. There's something more symbolic to today's defeat than just a loss to Iowa. I think it's officially the death knell of Wisconsin being in the upper echelon of the Big Ten. I think we are relegated now to obscurity, to mediocrity, to being a middling team in the Big Ten. As the Big Ten expands, we're just now another name. We're not in the upper tier up, we're not on the top of the totem pole like we used to be.
Can Leonard get him there, though? I mean, do you believe Leonard?
I hope so. And again, he's playing with Paul Chris fucking milquetoast recruiting players. And everything. And
the culture that's been instilled.
So I want to give him, I want to give him some more time. And clearly he's engendered loyalty with the team and everything like that. Mm-hmm. I don't see the product of that on the field yet. But I mean, they're saying the right things,
right? And part of me is,
do I think? Am I saying that today was as bad as 9/11? No, but like it's pretty bad. But again, I don't overly dramatize.
Right. I mean, I didn't feel as bad as I felt after the Illinois game because at the very least our defense did have a great game. Iowa could not move the ball. They really couldn't. The only times Iowa scored was when our defense was put in a very, very difficult position, right? After the block punt, obviously defense was put in an unwinnable spot. And then after the long punt return, defense was put in a terrible spot. And then the other would be a pick six. Defense has nothing to do with that. So it can't put this on the defense. And hopefully, obviously we know who's responsible for the defense.
Honestly,
right?
I blame myself.
For you I
blame myself, right. It's not the defense's fault, it's not the offense's fault, it's my fault. And it's your fault. And it's all the other fans there who have put their hopes and their dreams and their desires and their hearts into a Wisconsin team that I think from the beginning of the season has decided that they're not going to reciprocate that sort of love and affection back to us. This is a middle-of-the-road football team played by middle-of-the-road athletes with middle-of-the-road coaching, and until Leonard can turn the ship around, it's on us. It's on us it's like when you have a loved one who is kind of like a drug addict and you enable them. We're enabling the Badgers by continuing to watch this absolute C- product on the field.
Right. Well,
so I blame myself. And you know what? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start self-flagellating. I'm going to whip myself. Until the Badgers do better, I'm going to start whipping myself.
I'm going to hold you to that. May post some videos of Matt whipping himself on Twitter or something like that. Is there any coach in the country that could have won today that coached the Badgers with these players? Given what you're
because
if the keys are handed over, let's say last week you hand the keys over to any coach in the country, are they winning this game?
So
I'm just trying to think. I'm just trying to figure out how we evaluate Leonard, because like obviously the product in the field today was garbage, especially on offense, right? Absolute garbage on offense, and I just don't know if it's just a lack of execution because just the players just aren't good enough. They're just not athletic enough. They're just not.
So
athletes,
I want to separate my answer from the circumstance that we're in today, because I think Leonard is still somewhat handcuffed by his circumstance, right?
Yes,
And that is
100%.
he's just coming in and he can't make drastic decisions. But I want to take you back, okay? Not 10 days, not 10 weeks, 10,000 years, okay? And humans developed a bond, a kinship with a particular animal that has now become man's best friend, and that animal was the wolf. And in some sense, we became part of the wolf pack. And we have a weapon on our team who reminds us of this ancestral bond that we have with man's best friend, and his name is Chase Wolf. And I consider myself a member of that wolf pack. I am firmly a believer in the capabilities of Chase Wolf as a leader, as a quarterback, as a playmaker. So I would love to see a coach come in, and I understand that Jim Leonard can't because he's kind of on a probationary period. But I would love to see, to answer your question, is there any coach? I think a coach who was unbound by some of the expectations of Leonard. I think they would have pulled Mertz. I think they would have put Chase Wolf in. And I think what we would have seen is the rise of a new alpha, a new leader of the pack.
All right. I think putting Chase Wolf in is a terrible idea. I have not seen or heard anything about Chase Wolf that tells me he's anywhere close to Graham Mertz.
All I needed to see today was Graham Mertz's product to know that someone with a pulse would have been better.
Right. That's my only hesitation. I'm just trying to think. Had Chase Wolf played this game, I'm not sure the score really looks that much different.
Okay. Well,
right. Well, I guess my point being that Graham isn't that.
He couldn't have done worse.
Right. Exactly. He couldn't have
done worse.
That's really my point. Right. I don't know if he really could have done much worse. I mean, Graham 3 turnovers. Right. I mean, 1 in a fumble and 2 interceptions. Had Graham not thrown, I mean, Graham had, I don't know, I would say maybe 3. I mean, it was 16 for 35, right? I mean, horrendous performance.
His numbers were abysmal. He needs a haircut really, really bad.
And I don't think he needs a haircut. I do
you know what it is?
It's a 80s sort of throwback flow. I actually think the hair is actually probably...
No, I don't. I understand that the entire team is Gen Z, right? Like, I get that's how generations work, and they're just this. I'm now an older generation than the team that I support. But his team screams out his hair screams out to Gen Z to me.
Okay.
And I think it's this entitlement mentality that this newfangled generation has. And I don't know, I just feel like if you give it to Chase Wolf, who...
Also Gen Z.
Also Gen Z, but hasn't been given anything. He wants to earn it. I think you're gonna see magic happen.
Okay, I would say Graham's hair is more of a Gen X. It just seems very like throwback, like almost like 70s, 80s.
Gen X has no physical. There's nothing that physically embodies Gen X because they're like the forgotten generation.
Right. They're the forgotten generation.
So, but I think he's got this like weird e-boy curly haired mop thing that you see on like TikTok phenomenon. And I don't like it. Okay. I want my quarterback to be clean cut and to throw accurate footballs.
So if you could give Graham Mertz a haircut, what haircut are you going with? So
I want to do a fade on the sides, probably starting at like a 00 up to a 1. Give him a small part on the side and keep the hair long and really accentuate his curls. So we're gonna get him some nice curl and but like a clean cut, but not all the way clean cut because we don't want him looking like he's in Mad Men. But I think if you were to give him that, he's gonna feel more confident. He's going to feel more put together, and I think you're gonna see that confidence come through in how he plays and produces on the field.
I mean, do you think his current hairstyle is weighing him down physically, or is it
I don't think it's weighing him down physically. I think it's weighing him down emotionally, because I think every time he looks in the mirror, he's seeing someone who is not an attractive person.
Right, sloppy as a sloppy does.
Sloppy as a sloppy does. And again, if you look good, you feel good. But if you look like a bitch, you play like a bitch.
My Pee-wee football coach when I was in 4th grade actually said, "You look good, you play good." Right? He was always obsessive about us having clean uniforms. So he did say, and he actually played for Tennessee Volunteers in college, and his whole mantra was, "You look good, you play good. Make sure you got your helmet's got to be clean, jerseys, pants, everything's got to be clean, no grass stains."
And that's I think your Pee-wee coach was onto something. And I don't want to harp on...
I will say, though, my Pee-wee's coach's, ironically enough, haircut was not that much different than Graham Mertz's current haircuts. So...
All I'm saying is, I think... Listen, I understand. It's ridiculous for me to harp on his haircut. But do I think that that's 70% of the problem? Yes. But I'm not going to ask him to cut his hair. Okay. Because that would be ridiculous. What I am going to say is, why don't you be a man? Why don't you step aside? Why don't you let Chase Wolf, sling the rock around a little bit? And if he doesn't do as well as your abysmal performance on the field, then we'll let you come back. But be a man.
Okay.
Be a man.
Let's just say, if I accepted your absurd...
it's not absurd.
Okay, the fact that we should... let's just say we sacked Graham Mertz, which I think is a terrible idea. But if we did, why not go with Miles Burkett over Chase Wolf? Miles Burkett's got to... I mean, at this point, he could play the remaining games and keep his red shirt, I believe. I'd have to check see if he's played 1 game or 2 games. But why not? But Miles Burkett has a much, much, much higher ceiling than Chase Wolf. And if we're going to invest in the future, why not go with Miles Burkett?
So I have a very simple answer to that question. That is that I know nothing about Miles Burkett.
Yeah, so that's true. We've seen. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. We've seen. Although we haven't seen that much for Chase Wolf either. So we've seen very little.
So I know more. Listen. I'm a man who radically demands change, but also is afraid of it.
Okay.
So I don't understand Burkett. I don't know what he's capable of. You said he has a higher ceiling. That very well might be.
Right.
But I don't know him.
Right.
I'm scared.
Okay.
So I want to go with the Wolfpack. Okay.
All right.
Man's best friend.
All right. On that note, I think we'll wrap up this game.
I will say this. No. Because I'm very much. I want to end on.
No, I was talk about basketball.
Yeah, I want to end on a positive note. So let's.
If you have anything else to talk about as far as Wisconsin football goes, do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, let me just wrap it up. So I'll let me kind of summate our conclusions.
Right.
So
you're speaking for yourself.
This is what we mutually kind of agreed on together as a podcast together, and our friends who aren't on the podcast agree with us completely. So Graham Mertz stinks. We no longer want him as our quarterback. Chase Wolf can probably bring us to the next level. Jim Leonard needs a little bit more time to curate the team of his own making and his own creation. So this is kind of like a freebie year. But if I don't see the product next year, then I'm going to call for his head as well. But I want to see Chase Wolf under center. Okay. I don't want to see Graham Mertz anymore. Okay. And then also our special team should all be kind of let go, and we should hold open tryouts and recruitments.
Honestly, special teams is terrible. I'm with you there.
Right.
Real quick. Does this change anything about whether or not you want Leonard to be head coach?
No, I think Leonard should be the head coach. Like I said, I think this is a free year for him because he's operating under circumstances not of his own creation. So I think you need to always give a coach a little bit more time to build the team. But I'm only willing to give him through next season. If we have another season like this next year, then yes, I'll call for his head as well. And again, I'm a fair guy. I'm a fair guy, Evan. So if Chase Wolf doesn't perform, then I'll call for his head too, and then maybe I'll want to see what Burkett can do. But right now, there are several people that I no longer ever want to talk about again, and it's Graham Mertz is one of them, and then anyone associated with special teams, up to and including the guy that gives the towels and the water bottles to the kickers and punters.
Got it. So I know we'll move on to basketball here in just a second, but if you're, what are we trying to get out of the rest of this season? If we beat Nebraska, we take the axe, and then we just.
I think the only thing that we want to do this season is not lose to Minnesota.